अक्षरसमाम्नयमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृष्णं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयं नत्वा सरस्वतीं देवीं शुद्धां गुण्यां करोम्यहं पाणिनीयप्रवेशाय लघुसिद्धान्तकौमुदीम्। विप्रतिषेधे परं कार्यं नोचेत् सूत्राणां बाध्यबाधकभावः इत्यस्य अध्ययनं प्रचलत् अस्ति। तत्र अस्माभिः बाध्यबाधकस्य विषये भिन्नाः परिभाषाः अधीताः। प्रारम्भे पूर्वपरत्वमस्ति, विप्रतिषेधे परं कार्यम् इत्यनेन सूत्रेण तत् दीयते। तत्र अस्मादेव सूत्रात् अस्य सूत्रस्य द्वाभ्यां प्रकाराभ्याम् अर्थविधानं कृत्वा परिभाषाद्वयं वक्तुं शक्यते। सकृद्गतो विप्रतिषेधे यद्बाधितं तद्बाधितमेव, तथा च पुनः प्रसङ्गविज्ञानात् सिद्धम् इति। तदनन्तरम् अस्माभिः नित्य अनित्यत्वस्य विषये कृताकृतप्रसङ्गिनित्यं तद्विपरीतमनित्यम् इति परिभाषा दृष्टा। तदनन्तरम् अन्तरङ्गबहिरङ्गस्य विषये बहिरङ्गात् अन्तरङ्गः बलीयान् इति। अन्ते च उत्सर्गापवादस्य विषये उत्सर्गस्य अपेक्षया अपवादः बलीयान् इति अपि तत्र परिभाषा अस्माभिः दृष्टा। तदनन्तरं वारि इति शब्दस्य विषये सर्वेषाम् अपि सुबन्तरूपाणां सिद्धिः कथं भवति इति प्रश्नं स्वीकृत्य सूत्राणां बाध्यबाधकभावः कथं प्रवर्तते अस्मिन् विषये अस्माभिः अध्ययनं प्रारब्धम्। So let's go to the vari word. Vari इति शब्दस्य प्रथमैकवचनं वारि इति। तत्र वारि इत्यस्मात् शब्दात् सु इति प्रत्यये कृते तत्र स्वमोर् नपुंसकात् इति सूत्रेण सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः भवति. So that's the only sutra over there. There is no conflict. We discussed that sasajushoruhu iti sutram tripadyam vartate. So you usually do not consider sasajushoruhu when it comes to the badhya badhaka bhava because it is in the tripadi. As long as you have a sutra in the sapada saptadhyay, you should continue with the sutras in the sapada saptadhyay. So that's about the vari word. The second word was varini. So varini ityasya shabdasya prakriyayam prarambhe we have various varna karyas. So vari plus au ityatra iko yanachi iti bhavitum arhati. Prathamayoho purva savarna iti bhavitum arhati. But all these varna karyas are to be kept aside and we jump on the anga karyas. In case of anga karyas, we have two anga karyas operating in vari plus au. We talked about napumsakacha, which converts au to shi adesha. So that's one. And second is au is an ajadi pratyaya. So ikochi vibhaktau can cause a numagama on an iganta anga. So igantasya angasya ajadi vibhaktau pratyaye pare numagamaha or napumsakacha ityanena shi bhavaha. Now out of these two, we selected napumsakacha even if it was a purva sutra. So napumsakacha is 7119, ikochi vibhaktau 7173. We discussed that napumsakacha on some level is nitya as against numagama. Why it is nitya? Let's recollect that particular part. If you do napumsakacha first, that is, if you convert au to she and then she becomes e, then in the next step, ikochi vibhakta is definitely applicable, but it is applicable because of a different nimitta called e or she. In the previous step of vari plus au, the ikochi vibhakta is applicable because of a nimitta called au. In the second step, when you have vari plus e, the ikochi vibhakta is applicable because of a different nimitta called e. When the nimitta changes, a sutra is no more considered nitya even if there is the same sutra technically. Why? Because it's a different instance that goes on. So in this context, actually there are multiple paribhashas. I briefly talked about this, but in Paribhashendu Shekhara, at Paribhasha 42, Nagesha gives a blanket description of para versus nitya. He says paran nityam balavat. The Nitya Sutra is more powerful than the Para Sutra. And then he gives the definition Kruta Kruta Prasangi Nityam Tad Viparitam Anityam. Kruta Kruta Prasangi means Kruta Akruta Prasangi. Even if the Sutra B is executed or it is not executed, the Sutra A will always get executed. Then Sutra A will be called Nitya. The other can also be Nitya. It is not like if one is Nitya, other must be Anitya or anything. So in Purva Para, if one is Purva, automatically the other becomes Para. But in Nitya Anitya, it is not like that. If A is Nitya, it doesn't define B to be Anitya. So B can continue to be Nitya, A can be Nitya. So Kruta Kruta Pasangi Nityam, Tad Viparitam Anityam. The stock example that we discussed in that particular paribhasha is Tudati, to the plus tip. अस्यां स्थितौ तिप् इति सार्वधातुकः पित् प्रत्ययः, अतः तत्र तुद इत्यस्य उपधा उकारस्य पुगन्तलघुपधस्य च इति गुणादेशः प्राप्नोति. तुद प्लस तिप. At the same time, tudadibhyah shah brings or tries to bring in the vikarna pratyay sh. Now, if the vikarna pratyay comes in, the ukara is no more in the upadha. So, upadha guna cannot happen after the vikarna pratyaya. Therefore, upadha guna is anitya. But whether upadha guna happens or upadha guna does not happen, the sh is anyway going to come over there. Tudadibhyah shah says any verb of the tudadi gana will bring a sh over there. Therefore, the introduction of sh is nitya, and therefore you prefer sh over upadha guna, saying to the plus sh plus ti, which is tudati. Now, in this context, Parannityam Balavat, Nagesha also defines a few more, asterisks, conditions apply, or additional finer level details. So there are a bunch of paribhashas given in the sequence. So shabdantarasya prapnuvan vidhiranityo bhavati, shabdantarat shabdantare prapnuvan vidhiranityo bhavati. So both of them are combined in this 44. Lakshanantarena prapnuvan vidhiranityo bhavati. Then you have swarabhinnasya prapnuvan vidhiranityo bhavati. So in various cases where it appears that the same sutra is applicable on the next step, but something else has changed. Based on that, the corresponding sutra can be considered nitya or anitya. Now, of course, we are not going over all these paribhashas. The paribhashas that we are interested in focusing right now is this Shabdantare prapnuvatah anityatvam. So understand, he says Shabdantarasya prapnuvan vidhi, Shabdantarat prapnuvan vidhi, Shabdantare prapnuvan vidhi. So three things: Sthani, Purvanimitta, and Paranimitta. Out of that, Shabdantare prapnuvatah vidhi. If the Paranimitta changes, then the same sutra will be considered a different sutra. So, for example, in the current case, when you are talking about the Prathama Dvivachanam of the Vari word, Vari plus Au ityatra Au pratyayasya sandarbhena numagamaha bhavati. The numagama's nimitta is Au pratyaya. On the next step, Vari plus E, if you decide to do the Numagama's nimitta is the E pratyaya. So the para nimitta is Au in the first case, E in the second case. Therefore, even if it is the same sutra, the Shabdantare vidhi bhavati. The vidhi happens because of a different nimitta, and therefore it is now considered anitya. Therefore, the Napumsakacha Sutram is considered Nitya. Why is Napumsakacha Sutram considered Nitya? Because if you apply the Numagama in the beginning, if you do Ikochi Vibhakto in the beginning, you will get Varin plus Au. Varin by Ekadesha Vikrutamaninya, it's same as Vari. More importantly, it is the same Napumsaka word. Varin is not a separate Napumsaka word against Au versus E. Au is a different pratyaya, E is a different pratyaya. We are using Sthaniyut Bhava over there. That's not the case with Vari and Varin. Therefore, it is the same particle on which the Napumsakacha applies before and after. Therefore, we consider it as Nitya, and therefore Napumsakacha, in other words, Shi Adesha, is Nitya as compared to the Numagama. अतः तत्र शि आदेशः भवति नपुंसकाच्च इति सूत्रं प्रवर्तते. You convert au to she. As somebody pointed out in the last class, this is a sarvadesha. We consider it as anekaltvat sarvadesha and not shitvat sarvadesha. आदेशे कृते स्थानिवद्भावेन प्रत्ययसंज्ञा प्रत्ययसंज्ञायां जातायां लशक्व तद्धिते इति प्रत्ययस्य आदौ विद्यमानस्य शकारस्य इति संज्ञा तस्य लोपः इति लोपः इ इति अवशिष्यते. So you have Vari plus E. Then you do the Ikochi Vibhakta. It's a different instance of Ikochi Vibhakta now because the particle, the pratyaya is no more Au, the pratyaya is E. So ikochi vibhaktau iti numagamaha, varin plus e atukupwangnum vyavayepe iti natvam, varini iti rupam siddhyati. In the previous class, I think somebody asked if there was some other example of this shabdantare prapnuvan vidhihi anityo bhavati. So just to understand this particular paribhasha in more details, I could not recollect an example offhand at that point in time, but after the class, a very simple example flashed in my mind. One of the simplest one you can think of, the prakriya of bhavati. Bhudhatu, lat lakar, prathama purusha ekvachan, bhavati. How is this particular prakriya happening? You have bhu plus ti. This ti pratyaya causes the guna on bhu by using sarvadhatuka ardhadhatukayoho. But at the same time, kartari shapa is bringing in the shapa gana vikarna pratyaya. So you have a conflict between sarvadhatuka ardhadhatukayoho giving bho plus ti and kartari shapa giving bhu plus shapa plus ti. Now, if you do the bhu plus shapa plus ti first, you can still do the guna because shapa pratyaya can now cause the guna. So same sarvadhatuka ardhadhatukayo can cause the guna, but the nimitta is different. Earlier the nimitta was the ti pratyaya. Now the nimitta is the shapa pratyaya. Shabdantare prapnuvan vidhihi. Therefore guna is considered anitya over there. Initially, it was because of the nimitta called ti, but if shapa comes over there, bhu becoming bho is because of shapa. The nimitta, the paranimitta changes. Sabdantare prapnuvatah vidhehe anityatvam. Therefore, shapa is nitya, guna is anitya. You do the shapa, bhu plus a plus ti, then you do the guna, bho plus a plus ti, avadesha bhavati iti rupam siddhi.
Can you explain
Clear?
the prakriya once more, Mahodaya?
Whose prakriya?
This bhavati.
Okay, you have bhavati. You start with bhudhatu. See, I'm purposely not writing. Everything should be imagined, but if you want, you can write while I'm telling you. You have a bhudhatu. Okay. You want to do lat lakara prathama purusha ekvachanam. So you start with the letter pratyaya. So the starting point is bhu plus letter. Then in the first step, letter gets converted into one of those 18 pratyayas, tiptas, ji, sipthastha, blah, blah, blah. You want prathama purusha ekvachanam, so letter becomes ti. So you have bhu plus ti is the second step. Ti in the sense there is tipa, but pa will go away by halantyam tasya lopaha, so bhu plus ti. Now at this stage, P is a sarvadhatuka pratyaya. It is a pit pratyaya. Anytime a sarvadhatuka pit pratyaya comes in the front, the anga gets a guna. The Guda is a conversion of U to O in this particular case. It is given by the sutra Sarvadhatuka Ardhadhatuka Yoho. So Bhu plus Ti, it is possible to do a Guna over there, and Bhu plus Ti becomes Bho plus Ti. U will become O because of Guna. So that's one way the Prakriya can proceed. That is one sutra to consider in the Badhyabadaka Bhava. Bhu plus Ti becomes Bho plus Ti by Sarvadhatuka Ardhadhatuka Yoho. At the same time, the second member conflicting over there is the introduction of the Gana Vikarna. Bhu is the dhatu of the first Gana. By the sutra Kartari Shapa, the Shapa Gana Vikarna Pratyaya. Shapa is a essentially, Sh and Pa are Sanyaka, but we will say Shapa. So Shapa is expected to come over there. So the second sutra conflicting over there is the introduction of Shapa. If you do that step, it will be Bhu plus Shapa plus Ti. So the first sutra will give bho plus ti. The second sutra will give bhu plus shapa plus ti. Now, if you do bho plus ti, can you do shapa now? Yes, you can do shapa now. Is it on the same particle? Yes, it is on the same particle called bhu because bho is not a different dhatu. It is same as bhu. Moreover, because of ekadesha vikrutam ananyavat, you can consider it as bhu. Therefore, bhu and bho are considered same in this context, and therefore shapa introduction is same whether it is bhu plus ti or whether it is bho plus ti. Clear so far? However, if you now talk about guna, in case of bhu plus ti, the guna happens because of the ti pratyaya. Ti is the Sarvadhatuka Pratyaya that causes Bhu plus Ti getting converted to Bho plus Ti. If you do the Shapa, the configuration is Bhu plus A plus Ti. Still the Guna can happen. But the Guna is now because of the Shapa Pratyaya. Ti has nothing to do over there. So Bhu plus A plus 3 will get converted to Bho plus A plus T, but it is because of the A. So what do you see? The first Sarvadhatuka Ardhadhatukayo has a different nimitta. The second Sarvadhatuka Ardhadhatukayo has a different nimitta. Exactly like how it is happening over here. The first Ikochi Vibhakta has a different nimitta. The next Ikochi Vibhakta has a different nimitta. When the nimitta differs, the paranimitta differs, the sutra is considered anitya. शब्दांतरे प्राप्नुवन् विधिः अनित्यो भवति. Therefore, सार्वधातुक अर्धधातुकयोः is anitya, kartari shapa is nitya. The nitya sutra is preferred. You use kartari shapa, you do the shapa vikarana, you get bhu plus shapa plus ti. Now bhu can become bho by the sarvadhatuka ardhadhatukayo, which is a different sutra now. It is not applying because of the nimitta ti, it is applying because of nimitta shapa. So bho plus a plus ti, echo yavayavah bhava plus a plus ti bhavati.
Mahoday, but here we don't talk about this antaranga or something. This
But why is shapa antaranga?
like vikarana pratyaya has to be applied first. So it is there something
Why?
like
That's
that?
what. See, Badhya Badhaka Bhava is basically telling why Vikarana Pratyaya should be applied first. The answer is Badhya Badhaka Bhava. Or
Okay.
answer is Nitya Anitya, Antaranga, Bahiranga, Utsarga, Pavada, Purva, Para, whatever. So that's the question that we are answering. Why is Vikarana Pratyaya to be applied first? Because of Nitya Anityatva, not because of Antaranga Bahirangatva. Why not because of Antaranga Bahirangatva? Because Antaranga is the internal nimitta or internal prakriya, and Bahiranga is the external prakriya. Here there is no internal versus external. In the Shapa comes because of the Sarvadhatuka Pratyaya sitting next to it. The Kartari Shapa Sutra has an anuvritti of Sarvadhatuke from Sarvadhatuke Yaka. Sarvadhatuke Yaka Kartari Shapa is the sequence. Sarvadhatuke comes as an anuvritti in Kartari Shapa. Therefore, the Shapa Pratyay comes between Bhu and Ti because of Ti. So there is no Antaranga Bhava here. Did I answer your
Awesome.
question or you wanted to ask something
Yeah, yeah.
different?
No, you answered it. Thank you. Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, okay. And appendix or subsequent question over there, why don't we learn or why don't we consider nitya nityatva while writing the prakriya of bhavati? Well, technically you should, but if at every step you keep on talking about badhaka bhava and competition between all types of sutras, it will take probably few hours for you to write the full prakriya. So typically there are these shortcuts, there are these ready-made rules that are given to you, like you just said, vikarana pratyaya should be done first. So it is a niyama, it is a rule, it is a technique that is given to you and you blindly apply it. But you need to go at the root of that technique and understand why should vikarana pratyaya be applied first. The answer is nitya nityatva, and that's where this particular vadhyabadhaka bhava helps us to come to the conclusion. Once you know that vikarana pratyaya should be applied first, you can start going ahead and applying it first in the prakriyas. By the way, in case of this Vari plus E also, there are other prakriyas. I mentioned that because we are talking about Badhyabhadaka Bhava, it is important for us to record this. There is Akasavarni Dirghaha. There is Iko Yanachi. Ikaha Yan Achi Pare. There is Prathamayoho Purvasavarnaha. That is also candidate. Yasye teacher is another candidate. And then you have Aungashyam Pratishedho Vachaha. Technically, Aungashyam is not required. The power of Aungashyam Pratishedho Vachaha comes in case of the Phalam Phale Phalani. It's not required over here, but because it is there, you can simply apply it. But all these are kept aside and Ikochi Vibhakto comes up because it wins against all of them. We have discussed this in the previous class. And then finally, Anatvam happens. Varini Rupam Siddhati. The next prakriya, Vari plus Jasa. Varini. Raswa and Dirgha are flipped. Vari, Varini, Varini. We start with Vari. Prathama Bahuvachana se Jasa Pratyayaha. Vari plus Jasa. The standard Varnakaryas are there. There will be Yanadesha possible. There might be some application of Prathamayoho Purva Savarnaha and so on. but we can keep these Varnakaryas aside. I already told you that whenever an Angakarya is possible, typically Angakarya will win over Varnakarya because of Paratvam. So here, let's see if there are any particular Angakaryas. One that you can clearly see written over here is Jashasoho Shihi. Just like the way in the previous one, Au got converted to She, here the Jas Pratyay will get converted to Haswa She. So Jas Pratyay gets converted to She. That's one candidate. Ikochi Vibhaktau is another candidate. So Ikochi Vibhaktau will give a Numagama. Just so she will convert Jasa to She. The same discussion as the previous place applies over here. Jashasoho Shihi, that is now Nitya, because Ikochi Vibhakto, even if it can happen in both places, in the initial step it is because of the Jasa, that is Asa Pratyaya. In the next step it is because of the Shi, that is E Pratyaya. Shabdantare prapnuvatah videhe anityatvam bhavati. So again, same paribhasha is applied over here. Jasa getting converted to Shi is Nitya. Earlier it happens on Vari, later it happens on Varin, considered same. Therefore, Jasyasoho Shihi, because of Nityatva, is executed first. Now my question is this. In case of this Vari plus Jasa, there is one more sutra that can be applied. What is it?
Yasicha Maha.
Very good, Jasicha. What is Jasicha doing? What does Jasicha
Guna.
do? Guna. So Vari plus Jasa should technically also give Vare plus Jasa. Like Muni plus Jasa becomes Munayaha. Vare plus Jasa can become Varayaha. What is the number of Jasicha? 73109. Jashasoho Shihi is 71. Ikochi Vibhaktau is 71. Jasicha is 73. So why don't we apply Jasicha? Okay. Somebody sings Sarvanamassthanam. But which of these karyas is for Sarvanamasthana? Sarvanamasthani cha asambuddha is going to come much later. That's the Sarvanamasthana karya. Sarvanamasthani acha asambuddha is not applicable as a contestant over here because Sarvanamasthani cha asambuddha requires a nakaranta anga. There is no nakaranta anga coming at this moment when you have vari plus jasa. The conflict is between jasicha, which causes a guna. It is between ikochi vibhakto, which causes a numagama, and jashaso shihi, which causes jasa to shi. None of that has a nakaranta sthani. Therefore, sarvanama sthani cha sambuddha is going to come much later. And therefore, the importance of jasa being treated as a sarvanama sthana, or jasa is not even a sarvanama sthana to be correct. She is going to be sarvanama sthana later on. So the importance of the Sarvanama Sthana is not at this place. Understand, Jasa is not Sarvanama Sthana for Napumsaka Lingas. Only when Jasa gets converted to she will be called Sarvanama Sthana. So at this particular place, Vari plus Jasa, you don't have Jasa as a Sarvanama Sthana. Anybody? Everybody knows the answer. It's just that you don't know that the answer is applicable over here. Everybody of you knows the answer. Guna vruddhi outvatrujvad bhavebhyo num purva vipratishedhena. We studied this in the last class. We talked about purva vipratishedha. We discussed the example of guna separately, a different example of guna, but this also applicable over here. The guna of vari to vare can be blocked by numagama by purva vipratishedha. So when there is a conflict between guna and numagama, the numagama wins by guna vruddhi outvatrujvad bhavebhyo num purva vipratishedhena. So guna is out of question. The competition is between num and jashyasoshihi, and then that num is again overridden by jashyasoshihi. Clear? Now in the second step, when you have Vari plus E, again Ikochi Vibhakto and Guna will conflict. Because Vari plus E, that Shi Pratyaya is Jasa Pratyaya. So again Jasicha Guna will come. So again there is a conflict between Jasicha and Numagama, and again by Purva Vipratishedha Numagama will win. So now the Numagama will come Varin plus E, and now Jasicha is not applicable because Jasicha is for Iganta Anga. And as somebody is pointing, there is napumsakasya jhalachaha coming in the picture. Yes. So in case of vari plus e, you have napumsakasya jhalachaha versus ikochi vibhakto versus jasicha. Jasicha is blocked because other two sutras do the numagama, and then napumsakasya jhalachaha and ikochi vibhakto is the same karya. You really don't care, but because of purva paratva, ikochi vibhakto wins, and then sarvanama sthane cha asambuddha is the only candidate over there. Varina plus e and then varini. Clear? A single prakriya teaches us so much. In the very first step, you have application of Purva Vipratishedha, which blocks the Parasutra in the favor of Purva Sutra, and you have Nitya Nitya. In the second step, you have the same Purva Vipratishedha coming again. Again, the Numagama is blocking the Guna, but at the same time, you also have another Vipratishedha between Napumsakasya Jhalachaha and Ikochi Vibhaktau, 7172 and 7173. 7173 will do the Numagama. Somebody is asking, Dirgha and so on are also possible. Yes, I mean, in all these steps, Varna Karyas are possible. So, in case of Vari plus E, there is Akasavarne Dirgha, there is Prathamayo Purva Savarna, there is Iko Yanachi also possible. But we will keep the Varna Karyas aside when the discussion is limited to Anga Karyas, because we know that Anga Karyas win over Varna Karyas because of Paratva. Let's go to Dvitiya. So same as Prathama, but the Prakriyas are slightly different. You have Pratyaya instead of Su Pratyaya. In Prakriya, it really doesn't matter. Swamor Napum Sakat Ityanena Pratyasya Luk Bhavati. Iko Yanachi is actually a candidate over there. Vari plus A. Obviously, Paratvat Angakaryam. Swamor Napum Sakat iti Pratyasya Luk Bhavati. Vari iti Bhavati. Ami Purvaha is also a possible candidate. Again, by Paratva, we choose the Anga Karya over the Varna Karya. The Varini Prakriya is identical because it was au and out. That doesn't really matter in this current context. The Varini Prakriya is also kind of identical. Earlier there was just a Pratyaya, now it is a Shasa Pratyaya. Therefore, it is less complex. You don't have to worry about the Guna by Jasicha. The Guna was only for Jasa Pratyaya, it is not for Shasa Pratyaya. Anyway, it was not coming, but we were required to block the Guna in the previous case. You don't need to block the Guna in the current case because the Guna is not even applicable. So, rest of the Prakriya is same, less complex because you don't have to worry about the Guna. Clear? All other Prakriyas, I think you already know, they are pretty easy. Varina ityatra vari plus a. Ta iti asti, vari plus a. So you have iko yanachi, and then you have ikochi vibhaktau. You have anything else?
Angonastriyam.
Angonastriyam. So you have Angonastriyam, you have ikochi vibhaktau, and then bunch of varnakaryas which you can ignore. So the real conflict is between Angonastriyam and ikochi vibhaktau. What do we use?
Angonastriyam.
Angonastriyam because of paratva. So Angonastriyam ityanena akaradesha bhavati. Whether it is numagama or not, would it make a difference? If I would have used ikochi vibhaktau. See, Angonastriyam, it is converting ta to na and you get varna. On the other hand, if I would have used ikochi vibhaktau, it would be na as a numagama on the anga. Varin plus a and then varna. Would it had made any difference if you would have used ikochi vibhaktau? Is ta a sarvanama sthana? No. So sarvanama sthane cha asambuddha viti dirgha na pravartate. So there was no difference. You could have used angonastriyam, you could have used ikochi vibhaktau. The final form is same. Doesn't really matter. Just for staying in tune with the shastra, you can use angonastriyam. Vari plus bhyam. What do you get? What kind of conflict is there?
Nothing is happening. Vari
Nothing is happening. Vari plus bhyam, nothing happens. Vari bhyam, varna melanam also not there. So vari bhyam, similarly vari bhyam, vari bhyam, vari bhyaha, vari bhyaha. Absolutely no prakriya over here. In other cases, varine, varinaha, varinaha, varinoho, varini, varinoho. In all these remaining cases, you have the same style of prakriya going on. Ikochi vibhaktu causing numagama, and then you have guna vruddhi autvat rujvat bhavebhyo num vipratishedhena. So different components of that Vartika come up and those get blocked by the Numagama. We'll go over one by one. So Varibhyam, no Prakriya, Varibhihi, no Prakriya, Varine. The Prakriya is Vari plus A. So Vari plus A. Iko Yadachi is always there. You don't need to worry about it. Gher Niti is there. Ikochi Vibhakto is there. So घेर् गिति इत्यनेन गुणादेशः सम्भवति गुणादेशस्य गुणादेशे प्राप्ते गुणचिर् तृषद्भावेभ्यो नुम् पूर्वविप्रतिषेधेन इत्यनेन नुमागमः इकोचि विभक्तौ इति नुमागमः विधीयते. So वारिन् plus a वारिणी. So same thing is going to happen for varinaha. Varinaha, gher niti is applicable. That gets blocked by numagama. Varini, achaghe is applicable. That gets blocked by ikochi vibhakta numagama. Same vartika guna achir auttva trujvadbhavebhyo num purva vipratishedena. So varini, again, same set of
Mahodaya, that
sutras.
Vartikam, that is it Vriddhyautva Trijvadbhava Gunebhyo Num or the Guna Vriddhi?
It doesn't
Is there
really
any?
matter, right? I have always used it as guna vriddhi. Maybe different versions have different rendering of that Vartika. Doesn't really matter. You have four candidates over there. Guna, Vriddhi, Autva and Trujvad Bhava. All of them will be blocked by Num because of Purva Vipratishedha. Now, how do you write it? It really doesn't matter. The wording of Vartikas is usually not that precise as against the wording of Sutra. The one that I have read is Guna Vriddhya Utva Trujvad Bhavebhyo. I believe that is the version in 1.4.2 Vipratishedhe Param Karyam. So Bhashya is our final pramana, right? So what does Bhashya say? Let me see. Guna Vriddhya Utva Trujvad Bhavebhyo. That's the wording in the Bhashya. Same story happens with Varenoho also. Actually simpler, because in case of Varenoho, there is no question of Gheringiti. It is just Vari plus Os. Iko Chiva Bhakto versus Iko Yanachi. Iko Yanachi is Varnakarya. You can ignore it. Iko Chiva Bhakto iti Numagamaha. Varenoho, Varenoho, and so on. Varinam, there is a conflict between Nutta and Numa. So in case of Vari plus Am, now you can ignore all the Varna Karyas. The two important Anga Karyas, Hrasvanadhyapo Nutta, giving a Nudagama on the Pratyaya, and Ikochi Vibhakto giving a Numagama on the Anga. So Varinam ityatra Vari plus Am iti sthite. A no particle is anyway going to come. The question is whether it becomes an avayava of the pratyaya giving nam, or whether it becomes an avayava of the anga giving varin. We choose nudagama over numagama. Why?
Because we need Nam, right? Nami.
We need dirgha, correct. Varin plus am, somebody is sending a message. Varin plus am iti sthite वारि इति अङ्गस्य दीर्घो न स्यात्. अतः पूर्वविप्रतिषेधेन अत्र नुडागमः स्वीक्रियते. So ह्रस्वनद्यापो नुटो is 7154. Ikochi vibhaktau is what, 7173 or something. So we select ह्रस्वनद्यापो नुटो by पूर्व विप्रतिषेध because we want to do the dirghadesha nami varinam 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 iti prakriya bhavati.
Here the
What your
conflict
which
is
one?
between Num and Nut, is it? Bari and Am.
Yes, here the conflict is between num and nut.
So Num and Nut means Nut wins.
Nut wins because of purva vipratished. Numachir tridvibhavebhyo nut purva vipratished.
Okay.
Two
Okay.
purva vipratishedas we studied in the last class. Gudavridya utva tridvibhavebhyo num purva vipratished. Numachir tridvibhavebhyo nut purva vipratished.
Purva Pratishidan. Yes.
The next one is Saptami Bahuvachan Varishu. Again, no prakriya, Vari plus Su. There is no conflict. Adesha Pratyaho will convert it to Sh, Varishu. Sambodhana Ekvachanam, He Vari or He Vare. What happens in case of Sambodhana Ekvachanam? Same prakriya as Prathama Ekvachanam, but in addition you have Hraswasya Gunaha, causing a Gunadesha. So Hraswasya Gunaha Sutram says, Hraswantasya Angasya Sambodhana Ekvachanasya Supratyaya Pare Gunadeshaha Bhavati. Like Muni becomes He Mune, Sadhu becomes He Sadho. In the same way, Vari is expected to become He Varye. And you have some more Napumsakat which causes the look of the Supratyaya. If the look happens, the na lumatangasya will kick up and rasvasya gunaha will be blocked. So the swamor napumsakat is a nitya sutra, rasvasya gunaha is anitya. Now understand the terminology, nitya anitya in the context of badhya badaka bhava. Swamor napumsakat is nitya by the definition of krutakruta prasangi nityam. Rasvasya gunaha is tad viparitam anityam. So swamor napumsakat wins 100%. You always get the look of the supratyaya. Understand this. This is crucial. वारी प्लस सु संबोधन एकवचनम इत्यत्र सु प्रत्ययस्य लुक भवति स्वमोर नपुंसकात् and you get vari. At that particular point in time, can hraswasya gunaha come? Hraswasya gunaha might be able to come if the anga karya is not blocked, but the anga karya gets blocked by na lumatangasya, and therefore hraswasya gunaha cannot come giving the form as vari. And then we suddenly say na lumatangasya is anitya, but now we are using the word nitya in a completely different context, not nitya versus anitya. That anityatva is inapplicability at a certain place in a prakriya. कुत्रचित् सूत्रं नैव प्रवर्तते, तस्य प्रसक्तिः अस्ति तथापि नैव प्रवर्तते, that's called anitya. So न लुमताङ्गस्य is anitya, therefore सोमोर नपुंसकात् इत्यनेन सुप्रत्ययस्य लुकि कृते अपि तत्र ह्रस्वस्य गुणः इति गुणः अवश्यं संभवति, and therefore हे वारे is also an acceptable form. Very delicate prakriya because there are two interpretations of the nitya word being used. First is the conflict between swamor napumsakat and hraswasya gunaha. Swamor napumsakat is nitya in the definition of badhya badhaka bhava. Because of the nityatva, it comes and su pratyay goes away. Now nalumatangasya comes in the picture. That nalumatangasya is anitya in a different definition that a sutra forgets to apply itself at some places. Because nalumatangasya is anitya and because it forgets to block the guna, guna will come and you will get he vari. Clear? Eng hrasvat sambuddhehe is not applicable. You do not do guna first. What happens in case of mune? He mune, you have muni plus su. First the guna happens. Mune plus su. And then su goes away by eng hrasvat sambuddhehe. That's not what is happening over here. Here, first the su will go. Vari. And then because of the anityatva of nalumatangasya, guna will come and it will become he vari. Clear? The next two prakriyas, Varini and Varini, are same as the previous ones. So that's where we complete the prakriya of Vari. This completes an important section in our discussion of Vipratishedhe Param Karyam. In this prakriya of Vari, we saw various examples of Nitya Anitya. We also saw examples of Purva Para. We also saw the examples of Purva Vipratishedha. That's the reason why this exercise was given to you. The next in the sequence is Antaranga Bahiranga. Again, I don't want to go in the details of Antaranga Bahiranga, but I have given a brief idea of what Antaranga Bahiranga means. The definition of Antaranga and Bahiranga is convoluted. It is in terms of each other. So we saw this particular diagram in the previous class. Antaranga Bahiranga requires three components unlike others. So Nitya Nityatva requires two components, Purva Para two components, Utsarga Pavada two components, but Antaranga Bahiranga requires three components. You have a sthani, you have the first karya and the nimitta of that, and you have the second karya and the nimitta of that, and you actually measure the distance. So you say that the nimitta of the first karya is closer to the sthani as compared to the nimitta of the second karya. Therefore, the first karya is considered antaranga, internal, as compared to the second karya. So, antaranga bahiranga always needs three particles. Why? Because there are two nimittas for two karyas and one sthani, or it can have two sthanis and one nimitta, whichever. You can see various types of examples when you study this particular paribhasha in details, but they should be in general three components. And then antaranga and bahiranga is defined in terms of each other. So this is like A is defined in terms of B and B is defined in terms of A. I taught this definition in the previous class. Bahiranga Shastra Sambandhi Nimitta Samadaya Antarbhuta Nimittakatvam Antarangatvam. What does it literally translate to? Bahiranga Shastra Sambandhi Nimitta Samudaya. a nimitta which causes the bahiranga karya, tad antarbhuta nimittakam. Inside that occurs the nimitta of antaranga karya. So the nimitta of the antaranga karya occurs inside the nimitta of the bahiranga karya. That is the verbatim translation of the first line. And what is the bahiranga karya? A bahiranga karya is that whose nimitta occurs outside the nimitta of the antaranga karya. So antaranga shastra sambandhi nimitta samudaya, the bahirbhuta nimittakatvam bahirangatvam. So A is defined in terms of B and B is defined in terms of A, but this is typically how they define antaranga bahiranga. Or in simpler language, which is actually equally complex, you can say antarbhuta nimittakatvam antarangatvam, bahirbhuta nimittakatvam bahirangatvam. So antaranga is where the nimitta is inside, bahiranga is where the nimitta is outside. Now outside and inside of what? Of each other. So again it comes back to the same thing. Antaranga is the nimitta being inside of bahiranga. The bahiranga means nimitta being outside of antaranga. The stock example is given that of the lacha plus rinvula. Rinvula is a krut pratyaya. So when you want to add this krutta pratyaya rinvula on lacha, you can do the upadha vruddhi by ata upadhayaha. Lacha will become lacha. At the same time, you can do tugagama because of the cha. Che cha iti tugagamaha bhavati. Gacha becomes gacha, yacha becomes yacha, priya chhatra becomes priya chhatra. You have seen many examples of this Checha Sutra. So tugagama happens. Now you see if it fits in this sequence. Sthani is a. It is the same a which is going to undergo a vruddhyadesha by one sutra and tugagama by another sutra. Tugagama is antyavayava, adyantau takitau. So it is akara which gets the tugagama. So sthani is a. The prathama karya is tugagama. Its nimitta is cha. The dvitiya karya is akara desha. Its nimitta is navula which comes outside. So cha is inside. The tugagama has nothing to do with whether it is a navula pratyay, trucha pratyay, lang lakar, lat lakar, whatever. Tugagama will happen. Therefore, the nimitta of the tugagama is internal. The nimitta of the navul pratyaya is external. And therefore, you can do the tugagama by antarangatva. Once the tugagama is done, the bahiranga sutra is no more applicable. You get lakshaka. Okay. Interestingly, Antaranga Bahiranga is a technique that is used typically when you have multiple pratyayas coming one after the other. This is a very unique example where Antaranga Bahiranga has been demonstrated with only one pratyaya. But the real power or the real reason why Antaranga Bahiranga was created is when you have multiple pratyayas coming one after and you want to do the work from left to right. I'll give you a very simple example. There is a word called Devi, Natva Saraswatim Devi. All of you have done the Vakyartha. You know the exact prakriya of the derivation of Devi. How is this word derived? You start with the Diva verb. On the Diva verb, you have Acha Pratyaya by Nandigrahi Pachadibhyo Lyudinyachaha. That gives you Deva. And then on that Deva, you add a Ni Pratyaya by Tidhane, and that gives you Devi. So if you look at the full prakriya, you have diva plus acha plus neep. This is called vakya anvakhyana paksha, where I think I have already discussed this probably in one of the earlier classes. But vakya anvakhyana paksha simply means that you write all the constituents together and then start the prakriya. You don't form deva first and then devi. You write all the constituents together. Diva plus a plus e. A is acha and e is neep. So diva plus a plus e. And in the conjugation of diva plus a plus e, you want to do diva plus a first, giving deva. You don't want to do a plus e first. And that's where the antaranga bahiranga comes in the picture. E pratyay nimittakam karyam bahirangam asti, a pratyay nimittakam karyam antarangam asti. So that particular consideration of antaranga bahiranga is used over there to do the deva first and then do devi. Okay. So typically antaranga bahiranga is used in case of multiple pratyas linked to one another. Only then you have three entities. So the fundamental premise is that you need three entities. There is one anga, there is one pratyaya, and possibly another pratyaya. It can also be the case of upasarga. So there is one upasarga, there is anga, and there is a pratyaya. that is also possible. So there are different configurations in which antaranga bahiranga can take place. Asiddham bahirangam antarange, the biggest paribhasha in Paribhashandushekara, it goes on and on and on and on and talks about that particular all possible cases where antaranga bahiranga can be used. I don't want to go in those details because that will take another set of classes. So we'll stop here. In the next class, I want to discuss about Utsarga Apavada. First of all, a general discussion of Utsarga Apavada, and then go over specific Utsarga Apavada in case of the Varna Karyas of the Subanta Prakriya. So, Iko Yanachi, Akasavarne Dirghaha, Pratamayoho Purvasavarnaha, Ami Purvaha, Ad Gunaha, Vruddhirechi, all these sutras, how the Bradhya Badaka Bhava operates between them, we will study that particular topic and then we will conclude the discussion on Viprati Shedhe Param Karya.